Ay, 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 ay. Siesta ocho. That must mean it is time for city business. And indeed it is. Welcome to KRUU's studios here, Mission Control, as we like to call it, going on 10 years now. This year, our 10th year, a decade's worth of 24/7 broadcasting. Welcome back to the studio, Fairfield Media Center, Jason Strong, and of course, in the studio as well, Michael Halley, 4th City Council Ward City Council person. Good to see you. How you doing over there, Michael?
Good. Glad to be here. Glad that you're here this time.
Yeah, well, thanks for carrying on, as it were, and I do appreciate that. Also, John, I want to remind you, after each City Council session, we bring it to you in our way. I mean, you can always go straight to the source if you want. It's always, the whole show is filmed there, Fairfield Media Center, which we appreciate very much. Of course, reported it in the Ledger as well. And you can also get information on meetings going straight to the City Council website. But KRUU's brings it to you right after each meeting. So the following lunchtime at 12:30, Thursday then 6:30 p.m. dinner time, and the following Monday 6:30 a.m. to catch you up on City Haps. And speaking of which, what do you got on your docket, Mr. Halley?
All right. Well, this is an informal review of our regular City Council meeting from February 8th, 2016.
Excellent.
All right. So we didn't have any public, any public appearances or anyone wanting to speak to the council. So we moved right into our resolutions, action items, and ordinances. We set a public hearing for the consideration of our fiscal year 16-17 budget. So the Ways and Means Committee, which I now sit on for the first time, worked on the budget. Luckily, our city administrator had gone over every department's budget and encouraged them to reduce spending from last year. And I think of the 7 major departments, 6 came in under last fiscal year.
Wow.
Without taking away any services that are offered. So it is possible, but there are expenses that will come down the road, equipment purchases that will be needed in the fire department and the public works and some of the others that you can't be this way all the time. But right now, it's partly to get our credit rating for the general obligation bonds back up, is to stay in the black and come in under budget. So we're aiming to come in under budget this fiscal year. The city's fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. So we'll come to an end in June and start our next one.
Excellent.
So the public hearing will present the budget. It'll be February 22nd at 7 p.m. at City Hall. So it'll be our next council meeting.
That's February 22nd. Budget, folks. That's the bucks.
Yep. And now anybody in the community who's interested in this process is free to come to the Ways and Means or any committee meeting at any time. They're all public. Only 2 reasons that you can legally go into closed session. One would be talking about real estate, not wanting to have it public what you're willing to pay for something and willing to sell something for. And the other is if a personnel issue prefers to be kept quiet. So if something that's potentially embarrassing or whatever for an employee, that can be private. But those are only 2 reasons and very rarely used. So public meetings, check out the city's website, cityoffairfieldiowa.com. All the meetings that are coming up are posted on the right side. You can click it, see the agenda, find out when, where, and if you're interested, come on down.
And it's an important way of, anyway, sometimes I've said it, and it takes gumption and time and all that sort of thing, but by the time it gets to the end of something, it's different than in the build-up, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the process.
Yeah, and there's a process, and the process is done on the committee level, and then the decision's made at the council meeting. So that process, I know you've been involved with it with Fairfest before, is more informal, and you can really take the time to get down to the details. The council meeting is kind of just making the decision after the process has been handled. All right, we did a couple of tax abatements.
I'm so sorry. I just want to say that, and then you're also dealing with the people on the committee who are recommending to the council, and if there are issues. So it's in a way, it's closer to the source of whatever issues there are that can be handled by the folks that are involved in it. and again, it's got its own dignity and everything to it. But people generally at those meetings come either fairly well prepared or, but it is possible to observe and to do those other things as well. They're open meetings. That's what it means. So
open meetings.
We encourage open participation.
Exactly. And that's part of our system of government is participation is strongly encouraged. A couple of tax abatements for some residential improvements. So again, we pass these through as long as they fit our criteria of being something that will add value to the property tax assessment, but we don't do the assessment of the increased valuation. That's done through the county assessor. So it passes through the council, then goes to the assessor. So someone may say, hey, I had a $100,000 property and I did $30,000 of improvements. The assessor might only think that it added, say, $10,000. Or you can flip it around. Someone might do something, they only spent 10, but the assessor, and I don't know how the assessor figures these things out. It's a county thing. County separate from city, just everyone knows.
Well, I'm sure they have the rules that you can talk with them.
Yeah, and people have contested an assessment and had to go and, I don't know if there's a hearing process. And so you can, the assessor is an individual who works for the county at the courthouse, is somebody you can call and approach and request an answer. Well, why did I get that assessment? But again, we provide the abatement for the city's portion of property tax, which is about 40% of your total property tax. All right, moving on with preparing to actually put out the bids for step 1 of the sewer upgrades.
Excellent.
And this has come to my attention. I want to take a moment just to talk about the big picture.
Sure.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit.
I'm happy to be on the spot.
Yeah, somebody's interviewed me several times. Can you say what really prompted the need for the sewer upgrades?
Well, can I say what prompted the need?
Was something very specific.
All I know, we've been reporting it for years about it being a problem and being in contradiction, and that the state has worked with us to get it repaired over time.
Yep.
What caused it, I'm assuming, is general use over time. I don't think there was a catastrophic event. I just think, when we see what's going on in Flint and other places, it's come up to a lot of people's attention that there are infrastructure issues that aren't being handled. So that's what. So is that correct or
halfway? Okay. So the system obviously needed to be repaired along the way, and there was a lot of deferred maintenance. Then there's decisions made by previous councils not to raise the rates in order to make those upgrades, and that was done until it became no longer a choice. So the city is beholden to DNR, who is acting, the State Department of Natural Resources, acting on behalf of the Federal Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay.
And it is an environmental, the reasoning behind it is to improve water quality in the environment. So there's this thinking, I believe in the citizenship, that somehow the system doesn't work right, or somehow it's not serving us users properly, but it's not really the case. Obviously, some of the lines need to be fixed, but what's going on is it's not backing up people's houses. If they have a problem, that's the lateral line. That's their property. Okay. But the mains, it's not that the system doesn't work. It's that it allows stormwater into it, which then overwhelms it, and then the water then, before it's treated, overflows. Right. Sanitary sewer overflow, SSOs. So the real simple reason that we have to do $30 to $40 million of upgrades is because SSOs, sanitary sewer overflows, are now illegal in the state of Iowa. The DNR has the legal power to fine the city over $1 million approximately a year. It's a certain dollar figure for every SSO, and that's an average that they are waiving.
SSO means?
Sanitary sewer overflow. Okay. So that's when rainwater.
Each one they can do that.
Yep. Each occurrence and each time. So when we get a lot of rain, we have to report in the paper where they happened. And they're always the same places. There's certain areas where the overflows occur. Right. Even though they are an environmental concern, a lot of times, because the rainwater that forces it to happen comes down so heavily, the overflow water is more diluted than the flow that comes out of the wastewater plant. So in a sense, it isn't in many times polluting the environment more than even just the flow that the DNR allows to come out of the plant as discharge. But it's really the principle of the matter. You don't want untreated sewage flowing into our streams that then flow into our rivers and in some places drinking water, killing fish, whatever. So it's an environmental issue.
Right.
Not so much we're failing the city of Fairfield users by not handling the waste properly.
Let me understand this, though. But you have said that past councils did not deal with this. They didn't need to. It wasn't, it's underground, whatever. And so until it got critical to a point, are you saying that the DNR changed their regulations?
Yep.
That's one part of it? Mm-hmm. So at that point, then...
It was not an option.
Okay.
And it is not an option. So we are under mandate.
Right.
Federal mandate channeled through state mandate. So the state's handling it, but it came from the EPA. And it's just important to understand, it's not that the system itself was not working right in terms of if I wash my dishes, wash my clothes, flush my toilet, that water goes down and I don't see it. And 9 times out of 10, it makes it to the treatment plants, gets treated. So the failing was that the overflows were occurring, and some of that was getting discharged into streams and other areas during rain events. But in terms of what we'll notice different, there won't be really any difference for the users. There's not going to be, you flush that toilet, it's just going to be the same as it was before. The difference will be that those sanitary sewer overflows will be eliminated.
And again, not to press this, what you're saying is that, and I've not said that this is the same issue that Flint is when they switch their water source and now they're getting drinking water from a river that's polluted and it's affecting children that way. Just simply that it's an issue that hasn't been handled and now it's being handled because it's been forced to be. You're saying because the EPA changed their standards, so that made it something. But in terms of the water runoff into the streams, I mean, that water goes somewhere. And even if it goes back out into our drinking, it's treated at the plant and so forth.
Well, it doesn't, but our drinking comes from deep well.
Okay,
and I'm going to get to that too.
Okay, well, but I'm glad you brought it up because this is really important to be clear on this. And in politics, it's easy to grab one example and apply it to the other. And this is good to get into the details because what is it going to take then to fix it? Because it's in process now.
Yeah, so it's the conveyance lines being expanded and replaced. So it's the pipes underground. Step 1 is from the wastewater plant, which is southeast of town, up to about Lampsome Woods, where there was a major bottleneck because so much was coming to that point. So just upgrading. You just have to build it for the population you have and a little bit bigger for the population you may have.
And it starts there and builds out?
It starts at the plant, moves up, and then step 2 will move kind of up around Crow Creek. And then the plant itself is being expanded to be able to handle more.
Right.
More when the rain comes in, it can handle all that volume, store it.
Is that the big...
the plant.
The big price there, right?
Yeah, and that's the one that just went from, was it 12 to 18 million. So that will be able to take... when the stormwater comes in, mixed with the wastewater, store it temporarily, then treat it as time allows.
Okay.
And so that's one technique to use that eliminates those overflows. So really the bottom line is eliminating sanitary sewer overflows, which is an environmental issue, not making the service that we get as users all over town. It won't really change anything from that. It's not, we're not going to notice anything. So it's just important to separate that because
it is important.
There's some citizens who are like, fix the sewers. And the other thing I want to say is we are moving as fast as possible. And we are doing everything possible. We can't do step 2 until step 1 is done. So we're moving on step 1. I will say this, we did postpone it. We would be further along, but we did it for the best possible reason, which was to apply for that grant that we got.
Right.
The $2.6 million grant.
Mm-hmm.
That was worth postponing it, maybe 6 months. So now that we know those grants are available, we're applying for the upgrades at the plant itself. Step 2, those will all hopefully receive grants as well, which will reduce the amount that we have to pay as users over time, which is great. So that's all good news, but there's this public discontent. Like the city is not doing its due diligence to fix this issue. I know it took a long time to get where we are. I can't speak on what happened before I was in the council, but we had to plan properly. And part of that is they actually videotape. They put a little video camera in all the lines through all of town. All the sewer lines have been videoed.
Modern age, like a little...
but first they flushed them out, by the way.
Jules Verne.
I've seen some of the footage. It's really interesting, but that's where they can see where stormwater is infiltrating. They can also see if a residential business hookup, the lateral line isn't hooked up properly.
Interesting.
So it's great. And then some of the lines don't need to be replaced. There's this lining that can be put in, an existing line to keep it from leaking.
Like some kind of plastic or...
Yeah, it's this rubber membrane that just rolled out and takes up, fills in any gaps. So all that has been happening, but these big projects, we worked with McClure Engineering. They gave us the rate increase schedule in order to pay for them, that now we don't need to follow all the way out as long as we keep getting grant funds. So it's moving as fast as it can.
Okay.
It won't change anything from our experience, but it will as it moves forward. The sanitary sewer overflows will get fewer and fewer and fewer. And the goal is, unless we have a 100-year rain event, we won't have any. There will be a thing of the past. So that's it.
Well, thanks. And I also just want to say we're speaking with Michael Halley. This is James Moore. You're listening to City Business. We talk about what goes on at the council after each city council meeting, Tuesdays at 12:30, lunchtime following each council meeting. And also for those that want to catch it or aren't able to listen now, 6:30 p.m. Dinner time on Thursdays, and then breakfast time, 6:30 a.m. if you're an early riser on Mondays. And so what else is on the docket? Thanks, by the way. We'll give congratulations to the mayor for his appearance in the Vice production that was out on their website about Fairfield and a number of different things. The political circus has left town for the moment. It's always fun being in Iowa. All of a sudden, people just care what we think about, and it's wonderful, interesting, very close race on the Democratic side, and now New Hampshire is going on as we speak today, the primary there. But the mayor looked good and interesting. The county was represented in that little piece, but more awareness of a great town that we live in, F-Town.
Yep.
What else you got?
All right. A gentleman driving a truck ran into one of our light poles over a year ago, and it cost $10,000 to repair it.
Where was that?
Somewhere here in town. I can't remember. But they never paid, so now we don't like to do this, but we had to give our city attorney authority to file whatever it needs to be done to make it a little bit. Hopefully he says, just when he calls and says, I've been given authority to take this to the courts, that might prompt him to pay. But, I liked what he said. He said, this is pretty straightforward. The pole did not reach out and hit the vehicle.
Yeah.
Lawyers, they have their own sense of humor. But
if it was moving, it means something wasn't right, too.
Yeah, right.
So. I should say if it appeared to be moving.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I hate accidents like that, and that is a big expense.
Yeah, but it needs to be paid for by the company who did it. All right, there's an area on South 2nd and Madison where the parking is so close to the intersection that people trying to turn south on the South 2nd don't have room. If there's a car in the other lane, there's no room. So we're going to designate no parking. It'll take probably 2 on-street parking spots, maybe more. I think let's just say 2 for now.
Okay.
They won't be there, won't be accessible.
Now, we've talked about this, haven't we?
Yeah, this was brought up by a citizen, but we just made the resolution to make that happen.
Cool.
So we also are adding 2 ADA, American Disability Act, so handicap parking spaces in front of the convention center. So there are 2 there now, and there'll be 2 additional. The thing about that is it's a double edge, because no one but someone with the right sticker can park there. Mm-hmm. So they become less accessible for the general population. Hopefully it won't be too much of an issue. All right, this one's going to be a little bit of what do I want to say? Slightly contentious issue.
Okay. So my favorite.
Yeah. It's going back to wastewater, but a little bit different. So on Libertyville Road.
Yep.
There at the corner where Libertyville Road meets South Main, heading west, mostly on the north side. There are a bunch of properties that are mostly in the county. They're not in the city limits.
Okay.
But the city is interested in extending our sewer line along there. About 2/3 of the property owners are fine becoming annexed into the city. They'll get access to the sewer line. They don't have to have a septic system any longer, and they're okay with it. The other third don't really want it. And so the way that the law is they can grant us an easement and get paid for the easement, but they don't have to tie into it. But when their septic system gets to a certain age, and if the county environmental supervisor tells them, okay, you have to replace this, then by law they can't replace it. They have to tie into our system. And once they do that, they have to be annexed into the city. So it's one of those things where, you don't have to come in now, but if it happens, at some point they will.
How many is it? Are we talking about?
I think it was 23 total,
so
and 9 who were not wanting to be annexed.
Okay.
Now, the city historically has never involuntarily annexed properties. This may be the beginning of something that's kind of a gray area.
Which I see what you're saying.
Yeah, if we run the line and then they say, well, I don't want to be part of the city proper. I don't want to be in the city limits. But at some point, because the line's there, they have to tie in. It's more or less by running the line, you're annexing them at some point in the future. So we want to work with property owners and try to find a solution everyone can be happy with. The importance of having that line is to not just serve those properties, but it kind of completes a loop. They're currently without a line in that area of town, and so it completes this loop that could service that whole area. And I know of one property that did get recently voluntarily annexed into the city. It's west of the hospital. They want to develop for housing, but they can't until there's sewer lines. So it's just a real interesting one. You got to you don't want to make anyone who doesn't want to be part of your city, it doesn't matter what you say, you're coming, but at the same time, for the greater good of the community, I don't know.
Is this a situation where pay is offered, or is it?
Yes.
So it's could it be a negotiating thing, or how does?
Well, the pay can be either cash or goes towards the cost of putting in a lateral line.
I gotcha.
Into the pipe once
which
it's there.
Which homeowners are for?
Which would save them, which they wouldn't have to no longer would have to maintain a septic, but their property taxes would be different. AKA higher, they would be up from being out.
So it's a whole bunch of little fun things.
Yep. They get other city services. They get recycling and trash pickup. They get the things they're not currently getting. Actually, some can get them if they're close enough. They just have to pay double what the city people pay. So it's one of those things that
that's why we call it city business, folks. It's this is the detail of what it is, when a thing changes or moves, and boy, trying to factor that all in. I my hat's off to, honestly, to all the folks that do deal with this, because it's not. It's never quite. It's not as easy as it seems. The easiest thing for one person may not be the other, and there are issues that get blended together, and it's good to separate. And this thing about the county being different than the city, and it's like a big part of our life. I think mostly people just want to live and not think about stuff.
Exactly.
But that's what the city is dealing with. Yeah. So in a way, our representatives, so we don't have to. It's when something then impinges that we go, hey, wait a minute, or that we're just trying to understand. So what else you got on the docket there?
Two things. One I'm going to hit real quickly. Another one it talks about lead in the water.
Good.
So the city has taken the step to grant a right-of-way easement for Access Energy. They want to run along the west side along the wastewater plant property to access this recently annexed and voluntarily property that FEDA purchased out on 185th. So they're going to do it at their own expense, but it'll help if whatever gets developed out there has the electricity. It's going to be necessary. All right, so this is a report from our Fairfield Waterworks department. We talked about this at our council work session Saturday.
Great.
And it's a response to the concerns of Flint, Michigan and lead in the water. Now, every 3 years, the city is mandated by the EPA to test for lead. So they test in 20 random locations around town. So they don't test at the plant, they test in homes. And they generally like to test first thing in the morning when the water's been sitting in the pipes the longest, just to measure. So the EPA maximum level for lead is 0.015 and for copper 1.3. So let's go through time. In 2017, the city's lead level was 0.005. So maximum is 0.015 and we were 0.005 for lead. Okay. And we were 0.081.
So 1/3 underneath, roughly.
3 years later, in 2010, we were 0.003 for lead and 0.045 for copper. And then 3 years later, in 2013, we were 0.001 for lead and 0.0269 for copper. So it's been going down each year.
Good.
And they're going to test this year. This is the next testing year. So part of the reason that we have such good water is we switched from surface water, which can bring all sorts of issues, like in Flint, agricultural runoff and E. coli and things that you have to treat heavily for. And we moved to Jordan Well around 2000, which is deep underground aquifer. So we have to take out more minerals, but the water quality is so consistent. It might have been down there for thousands of years. So
I love the word aquifer.
You know what you've got. It's and we treat it such that it leaves a slight deposit. And if you treat it another way, without leaving that some of the minerals, it'll actually leach things from the pipe, which can make it much worse. So that's done intentionally. And so we do have slightly harder water. It will eventually gunk up your hot water heater and such, but it's done for safety. It's done to prevent anything in the pipes leaching into the water. Let me just finish.
Sure.
City of Fairfield, none of our pipes have lead in them. There may be some lateral. Again, the property owner's pipe. So people, if they're interested, could have that checked or test their own water. But we don't have any lead in ours. Ours are, the more we've been upgrading the lines, I think is another reason you saw that drop. Lines break. We take out old. There might have been lead collars connecting. Those are gone.
Oh, great.
So we have very clean water, and I've got the data to prove it.
Going to say one other thing. One issue in Flint was that the way they were testing wasn't quite proper, and I don't know if that's an issue or that's something we'll talk about another time. Isn't there time now?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that that's not an issue here. But did you have one other thing, or is that it?
That's it for now.
That's it for now. We're out of here.
I could always talk more, but we don't have time.
Well, we're actually over the hour. Don't tell anyone, okay? Oh, no, we have 22 seconds. This is America. Everything fits, and we'll be back next 2 weeks. Don't go changing just to try to please me. I love you just the way I am.